The Justice League take the fight to Darkseid. Using all of their combined forces, they stage an assault on Apokolips, only for it to go horribly wrong due to his new army. 2 years later, everything has gone to hell and back. Parademons now roam the Earth, the planet is being harvested for its resources, and most of the heroes are dead, in hiding, or too meager in number to mount a true resistance. John Constantine is one such survivor of the League, and he's contacted by Superman and Raven. Through flashback and throughout the movie, we learn what happened 2 years prior on that fateful day. Darkseid was listening in on the League's plan through Cyborg's apocalyptian technology. Combining his parademons with Kryptonian DNA, Darkseid created an army of paradooms, hybrids between parademons and Doomsday, and they wipe out the League. Most of them are killed, and the rest are rendered non-threats. Cyborg is mind-wiped and implanted to serve as a supercomputer to control Darkseid's armies. Batman is brainwashed into becoming a loyal servant and his right-hand man. Wonder Woman is turned into a cyborg herself and is made one of Darkseid's new Furies, alongside Mera, Martian Manhunter, Hawkman, and Starfire of the Titans. The Flash is made to power Apokolips by continually running. Finally, Superman is injected with liquid kryptonite that renders him powerless. The rest of the League is killed. Aquaman, Zatanna, Green Lantern, all dead, either eaten alive or ripped into several pieces by the Paradooms or Darkseid himself. As for Constantine, he ran, leaving everyone behind. Earth's remaining heroes met a similar fate. The Teen Titans were all killed, save for Damian, Raven, and Starfire, who was turned into a Fury. Nightwing was revived by Damian using the Lazarus Pit, but has been rendered insane. But there's still hope. Superman, Raven, and now Constantine work together to defeat Darkseid and avenge the Earth. Using help from the remnants of the League, the Titans, and the Suicide Squad, they launch another assault on Apokolips. Through a series of encounters, Batman, Cyborg, and those turned into Furies are all freed of Darkseid's control. Trigon is released from Raven's crystal, and through Superman is able to not only kill Constantine, but to combat the new god. After Superman witnesses the death of Lois Lane, he breaks free of Trigon's control with his powers now restored. Constantine wakes up in heaven, where Zatanna's spirit is not only able to bring him back to life, but tells him that she cast a compulsion spell on him to make him run away 2 years prior as a contingency plan. He wakes up, and though Superman fights valiantly, he can't beat Darkseid. From there, knowing that they don't have much time, Constantine and Raven free Trigon, who gains a body, and he willingly sacrifices himself to destroy Darkseid and Apokolips itself, while the heroes are boomed back to Earth thanks to Cyborg. But even though they won, the Earth is irreparably damaged, most of their friends are dead, and millions more will die due to the damage the Earth has sustained in the crisis. Knowing that there's no other way, the Flash runs back to create another Flashpoint, and as their timeline is erased, the heroes look on toward what they hope is a brighter tomorrow. So, this is it. Movie number 38, Justice League Dark, Apokolips War. What a piece of shit. While this movie is far from the worst we've seen, I still have to ask. That's it? This is the big finale that we're ending on? This is the end of the New 52 era of films? Really? The obvious comparison is obvious, I know, but we're going to hold off on that for a while yet. I'm judging this movie based on its own merits, or lack thereof. Apokolips War is a mess. This was supposed to be the culmination of 14 prior movies, and it doesn't properly follow up on any of them, or carry any kind of consistency in character development, or even what the different characters are able to do. But before I go into that, I want to point out a few things that I unabashedly liked. First, the way that the movie transitions at the start is great. We see the League looking on in horror as the Paradooms approach, cut to credits, and when we pick back up, it's 2 years later. That's really effective and makes you want to learn what happened. How could the heroes have possibly messed up so badly that the Earth is in such decay? And that's the kind of question we should be asking at this point. Second, for as much as I have a problem with the tone and the plot, this line,
"We don't have enough people,"
is really great to reinforce just how hopeless the situation is. There are 3 mass drivers, but the heroes don't have enough manpower to strike at all 3, giving their plan even less chance to work. Third, the voice acting was very good across the board, with the notable exception of Damian, whose actor sounded like he was bored the whole time.
I feared your plan would fail from the beginning. An army without killers is no army at all.
Fourth and last, there were some inspired directions that the story went, and it did have some interesting ideas. I liked the parallel between this and Justice League War. In that film, Superman is defeated and Batman goes to Apokolips to rescue him, whereas the reverse is more or less true in this one. That Darkseid had a productive plan for every captured Leaguer felt very in character for him as well, and was cool to see, especially with the Furies idea, even though I'm not a big fan of their design mentality. But anyway, let's get on to why this movie is really bad, shall we? So, it's a mess, and none of the characters follow a consistent arc or follow any consistent rules. I've already said this, and to prove it, I'm going to need to go into fairly extensive detail, so without further ado, Superman. He was kind of cocky in war, had nothing to do in Throne of Atlantis other than beat up Cthulhu, had a small amount of humanity in Justice League vs. Teen Titans, was useless in Justice League Dark, had a really great character arc about accepting responsibility, what it means to be a hero, and other stuff like that in The Death of Superman, had nothing in Reign of the Supermen, had more nothing in Batman Hush, and then we come to this. He's just kind of doing his usual shtick. There's no nuance or inner turmoil, and his near-dictatorial decision to attack Darkseid preemptively and the intimidation tactics he uses to get the others to comply felt extremely out of character for him, especially considering how he is in the rest of the movie. We don't even see how he gets from Apokolips back to Earth after he was depowered. He just shows up in one of the flashbacks to stop Raven from offing herself. From there, he's still fighting the good fight. He has a small rage moment during his fight with Darkseid, but it doesn't even amount to anything meaningful. It doesn't do that much damage, and he just moves on, so useless. Next. Wonder Woman. Had nothing in War, nothing in Throne of Atlantis, had a I am Diana of Themyscira moment in Justice League vs. Teen Titans, had nothing in Justice League Dark other than proving that Zatanna is in fact best girl, had another I am Diana of Themyscira moment in The Death of Superman, had nothing in Reign of the Supermen, confirmed that indeed she was Diana of Themyscira in Wonder Woman Bloodlines, and in this one she has yet another I am Diana of Themyscira moment, and then proceeds to do nothing except disappoint me with a sorry remake of the Wonder Woman vs. Furies fight from Superman Batman Apokolips. Her one solo movie had her regaining her honor and finding acceptance among the women of Themyscira after she abandoned it. And yet Themyscira isn't even mentioned in this movie, and neither is Vanessa, Steve Trevor, or Etta Candy. For whatever reason, Wonder Woman has just never been treated well as a character in these movies, except one time in the fourth movie in the catalog. And this is no different from most. She's a bland warrior chick. Next. Batman. Was a total dick in War, was a plot device in Son of Batman, literally should not have been in Throne, was a plot device again in Batman vs. Robin, was a plot device again in Batman Bad Blood, had a I'm Batman so I know better moment in Justice League vs. Teen Titans, literally shouldn't have been in Justice League Dark, was a plot device in The Death of Superman, was a plot device in Reign of the Supermen, had a really good character examination in Batman Hush, where the conclusion was that he was too devoted to the mission and his code to achieve true happiness and intimacy, and here, the only thread that this film follows up on is one that was dropped 10 movies ago, because Bad Blood did not focus on the Batman-Damian relationship like I thought it would have. The last development we see with them was in Batman vs. Robin, where it ended with Batman being proud to call Damian his son, and here, he has to learn to say that he's proud that Damian is his son, sort of. They get a moment together, sure, but what about all of the development he went through in Hush? I guess that doesn't matter. The Flash. Not going over any of his roles in the movies because they're all he's an action set piece in a skin suit, but I will say that out of nowhere he's been getting visions of the Flashpoint timeline, meaning he remembers what happened in Flashpoint Paradox. So this movie is now also trying to continue on that movie's story, which it doesn't, except for the ending.
I know some of you don't believe the visions I had about the Flashpoint, but a truly global war means death and destruction on a scale you cannot imagine.
Hal Jordan literally dies in the flashback. Shazam has one line of dialogue, which is yelling Shazam as he dies. Shazam! Zatanna dies in the flashback, gets one scene where she's all lovey-dovey with Constantine before that, and then she shows up in heaven and takes away all of Constantine's agency before magicking him back from the dead. Is she secretly a Whisper? Come on, I thought we were over that crap. and her arc of dealing with dark magic isn't expanded upon, in case you were wondering. As for Constantine himself, he didn't really have much of an arc in Dark, so I don't have much to go off of there for continuity. There was a standalone movie, which I say in air quotes, because it was a series of shorts that were later compiled unofficially into a movie, called Constantine City of Demons, but it's not listed on the Wikipedia list, so I ignored it. Either way, I read what happens, and nothing from it matters. His whole arc in this movie is that he's dealing with his own nature of being a coward. However, that wasn't part of his character before. They point out that he's gotten out of tougher scrapes with more dignity before, and he straight up says, "I don't know why I ran."
Been up against all sorts of bastards and I always stood tall. This time I just ran. Why did I do that? Why?
He didn't run when Destiny was running around everywhere, did he? And then, of course, it was revealed that him running was due to magic. Of course. Zatanna cast a spell on him before the attack without him knowing, which, honestly, that part I'm totally ready to believe since she's a much more powerful magician than him, so, that's not the part that bothers me. Anyway, this just takes away all of his agency. See, it wasn't a flaw that he ran, it was forced on him, right? Forget that he could have easily been driven into a depressed suicide due to his trauma, so there goes your contingency. Forget that he also doesn't know why he's helping Superman and Raven in the same way that he doesn't know why he ran, which is never explained if there's a connection there. Forget about all that. Let's just focus on the fact that this writing decision makes your main character f***ing inert. He doesn't go anywhere. He starts the same as he ends. There's no catharsis, no payoff because there's nothing to pay off. It's horrible. Why would they do that? Structurally, this movie feels very similar to Flashpoint Paradox, funnily enough. We have a pre-credit scene where the League meets up and does some stuff, and then hard cut to a familiar character in an unfamiliar world, where they and the audience have to connect the dots and pick up the pieces to save the day with the help of a ragtag group of rebels and a depowered Superman. Things get worse and worse, the world is ending before their eyes, and eventually things get so bad that Barry has to run and make another timeline. The difference between this movie and that is twofold. First, that movie, while also having too many characters, focused heavily on a few: Barry Allen, Batman, and Cyborg, along with the villains. This one tries to follow up on like 8 different storylines, and none of them mesh or make sense. Second, that movie's main character had to make the choice to reset the timeline, and it was an extremely difficult choice to make, a deeply personal one. Here, Barry tells the audience that he promised Iris that he wouldn't reset the timeline again, before immediately doing it. Barry Allen has not been a focus in this catalog since Flashpoint Paradox. This isn't even technically the same Barry, so why do we care? Yeah, this world sucks. Cool. There's no payoff in, well, we f***ed up, so let's start over. Never mind that Barry and Constantine don't even consult the others before choosing to erase all of their existences. Constantine, flat out, does not belong in this movie. He isn't main character material outside of very specific stories, like we saw in Justice League Dark. A movie about Darkseid taking over the planet and beating the Justice League is not his time to shine. This film should have stuck with the core Leaguers if they wanted to do it right. I don't care if Jon Stewart or Hawkman make cameo appearances or are in the backgrounds of scenes, but the movie should have stuck to a core group of characters. By the end, we're following well over a dozen. That's almost as many members as there are of the team at the end of the Young Justice Season 2. And if a 20-episode season can't do it right, what hope did this movie have when it was already written way worse? Speaking of, the tone in this movie is just off the wall. The world is dying, most of the heroes have been brutally murdered or eaten alive, and Harley Quinn is over here for a solid 20 minutes of the movie with the same shitty dialogue as was seen in Suicide Squad: Hell to Pay. The squad's entire inclusion could have easily been cut out to make room for more focused character arcs, considering they don't do anything very important, as you could have easily just had more of the Titans survive or something to round out the assault force. And all I thought whenever I saw them was, please go away. And I'm sure that that was not what the movie was going for. It's just so disappointing that this very serious story isn't treated with the respect it deserves. It's dealing with some pretty heavy shit, and the gratuity of showing us how bad everything has become seems to point to the movie taking itself seriously, and then we find Harley Quinn, and she ruins any kind of proper atmosphere the film was trying so hard to cultivate. More than anything though, I fundamentally disagree that this is the direction that the series should have gone. I'm not saying that I wanted it to go on forever, that's actually less of what I want. Ending a universe was an admirable goal to have with this film, but for something like that, you really need some proper setup before you jump into this. I don't mind that the heroes lose in the beginning either. I think a major loss should have happened somewhere in here or in like a setup movie prior to this, hint hint. That's Empire Strikes Back with the heroes on the run, Luke losing to Vader, and Han being frozen in carbonite. That's Crisis Core, Cloud is suffering from geostigma and his best friend is murdered by a corrupt military. These kinds of stories can be done well, including that one, but this was done so poorly. To reiterate exactly what happens as this movie portrays it, Superman calls a meeting of the League to discuss the upcoming attack on Apokolips, reasoning that they can't wait for Darkseid to make the first move, despite nearly everyone disagreeing with the plan. It's revealed that Darkseid is listening in on the plan through Cyborg's apocalyptian technology, and when the heroes go to Apokolips, they're attacked by a new army of Paradooms who slaughter them and then go to slaughter the rest of the heroes on Earth. To go over all of the problems, Superman wouldn't make such a rash decision by himself. I don't mind that he wants to go fight Darkseid now, but I don't think it's in character at all for him to strong-arm the entire League into doing so, especially with relative freelancers in their ranks like Batman and Constantine. The former doesn't voice any obvious concern, and the latter vocally disagrees with the plan for obvious reasons but is ignored. Superman's only reasoning is that Darkseid has attempted to attack them before and has been warded off, which Batman might argue with because of the whole justice not vengeance thing, right? And that Darkseid does horrible things to the planet he conquers, which, I mean, yeah, he does, but there's no evidence that they did or didn't know about this before. If they didn't, then they're stupid because of course he would be like that, and if they did know, then why didn't they make the decision to attack him before? True, we don't know how much time has passed between Wonder Woman Bloodlines and this, or if this opening meeting is supposed to be the one from the end of the Reign of the Supermen, but still. As well, that can't be true because in that scene, Luthor becomes an honorary League member, and he has that status in Batman Hush, but hey, they've messed with continuity before, because the prologue of Wonder Woman Bloodlines is supposed to take place during Justice League War, when Diana is still on Themyscira, when in that movie she was the emissary of Themyscira. So anyway, back to my main point. The reason the League, or rather Superman, attacks Apokolips now is arbitrary at best, and actively damaging at worst, as it harms the integrity of the League since it comes off as a dictatorship here, and it harms the Superman character. And that's just the first issue. Second, and maybe more egregiously, how is Darkseid able to see through Cyborg's tech? Has he just discovered that he's able to do this? If so, how and why has it taken him this long to figure out how to tap into his own tech? If he's always been able to do this, why hasn't he used it to his advantage before, such as during Reign of the Supermen when he's trying to invade the Earth, or Justice League vs. Teen Titans when he could have used it to preemptively kill Raven and thus Trigon? Him being able to freely spy on the Justice League and Cyborg apparently having no knowledge of this opens up so many plot holes just like that, and makes me wonder if Darkseid even really cares about Earth or beating the Justice League. After all, if he could see what they're doing at all times, he could have beaten them at any time. He could have beaten them and conquered the planet during the Atlantean invasion, when they're all beat to hell from fighting Trigon, when they're all being controlled by Destiny, or when Superman is dead. Or maybe he couldn't. No explanation is given for why he needed some advanced human portal shit in Reign of the Supermen, but he can just casually boom in an army or two here when the heroes attack the mass drivers, or even in Justice League War when exactly that happens. This is one of the many consistency problems. There are no set rules in this universe, which sucks out all tension because we don't understand the stakes. This leads us into the third problem, which is the Paradooms themselves. Again, Why now? Could Darkseid have not made these before after Justice League War, which is presumably when he got Kryptonian DNA when he captured Superman? If he couldn't, and he needed to make the original Doomsday as a prototype, why did he send it to Earth in the first place, where they could figure out its similarity to Kryptonian physiology and thus its weakness to kryptonite? The only reason the heroes survived long enough to counterattack in this film is because they knew the Paradooms were weak to kryptonite, which they presumably wouldn't have been able to know without knowing Doomsday's physiology. If he has these Paradooms, why does Darkseid still need regular old Parademons? Are they cheaper to make? How does he make them? Where is he getting all of this Kryptonian DNA to continually make more Paradooms? Or did he only have enough to make the one army with no replacements? Is he able to write DNA and convert the resources he steals to make new entities? If so, again, why bother with the regular Parademons? If not, how has he not run out of Kryptonian DNA to make Paradooms? What percentage of Paradooms is Parademons, and what percentage is Kryptonian? Obviously, it's enough to make them vulnerable to kryptonite, which makes me wonder, again, how he's making so many of them. Has Darkseid found a way to keep the Kryptonian cells from degrading? I imagine Kryptonian DNA is made of tougher stuff than human DNA, but Apokolips is also a much harsher environment than Earth. So the question still stands for me. More than anything though, why did Darkseid make this army of Paradooms? If he needed an upgraded form of troops to match the Justice League, then how was he an intergalactic conqueror in the first place when the Green Lantern Corps was patrolling the place and could have easily fought off Parademons? If his only saving grace was strength in numbers, so even relatively weak Parademons could beat a Lantern or two, why didn't he just focus his army onto the League in war, instead of sending them all over the planet? I know we're kind of getting off my question here, so let's circle it back around. I understand that the Paradooms are controlled via some kind of computer system, but still, with the possibility of viruses and advanced hacking and magic, techno-magic no less, why would Darkseid risk creating an army that could easily overpower him? And how is he controlling them before he implanted Cyborg? And why didn't Cyborg take control of the army when he was restored? Never mind. Anyway, if they ever went out of control, they could butcher him just as easily as they could the League, right? Or are we led to assume that he can kill them all himself? If so, why did he need the army when he could then presumably just murder the League himself? And if not, my question remains. He shows no hesitation in invading Earth himself in war, and he personally goes to Oa to slaughter the Guardians and the remnants of the Corps in this movie. So yeah, why have the Paradooms when it would just be an unnecessary risk? These problems compound on themselves as the movie goes on. As though the Paradooms are treated as this insurmountable threat in the beginning of the movie, by the end, they're only ever a threat due to their strength in numbers. The Suicide Squad is able to contend with them because of kryptonite weapons. The Suicide Squad. How? How did they not just instantly get slaughtered from the Paradoom's super strength and super speed? This is one of the many consistency problems that the movie faces on the regular. I've already mentioned how it makes no sense that Darkseid needs a portal in Rain, but needs nothing to boom in his armies to Earth here, but another issue is Darkseid's Omega Beams. The animators and writers can't decide on how they work to save their lives. In this movie alone, we have 3 different effects without any visual differentiation between them. On Oa, they act as both an explosive and as a piercing weapon, and when he shoots Damian with it, it seems to burn him from the inside out. What? Why?
The rest of us didn't last long.
This cannot be!
All to justify having a cheap reconciliation between him and Batman after their confrontation. Another inconsistency are the Paradooms themselves, which I've already touched on. In the beginning, they slaughter the Justice League, overpowering mighty heroes like Shazam and Wonder Woman, and in the climax even, they overpower those heroes like Superboy and Shazam again, but then they're also being taken out like it's nothing by the likes of Batgirl and Batwoman, who are using regular weapons, let alone the Suicide Squad, which I've already mentioned. What? These consistency problems contribute to the surprising lack of tension within the movie. If we don't understand the stakes, then we can't get invested. If we don't know how strong the Omega Beams or Paradooms are, then we can't get invested in the hero's struggle to overcome them. We don't need hard numbers or power levels, but we do need a solid foundation of power that can be understood. And rule number 1 with that is to make the power consistent. If the Omega Beams can pierce through bodies, make it do that instead instead of randomly exploding things or burning people to death. If the Paradooms aren't really that much stronger than Parademons, make that known, or if they are, keep them at that level throughout the whole movie. If they're too powerful for the heroes to conceivably beat in the end because they're so strong, come up with better tactics for the heroes or scale back the Paradoom's power level throughout the film so it makes sense. Of course, all of this criticism that I've laid on the movie is null when you consider how it ends. This is a superhero movie. Not nearly all of them have to have a happy ending, and I don't want all of them to have a happy ending, but this is downright depressing. They just give up. All of the effort they put in, all of the toil and hardship to get this victory is thrown away because the aftermath didn't suit them. They reset the universe because they are raging failures instead of picking themselves back up to try again, like heroes would do. I understand if it was just Constantine who wanted to make another Flashpoint, but I don't buy it for a second that they all just agree to do it so easily. For all intents and purposes, Barry is killing all of them by resetting the timeline. And you don't think Superman or Batman would have anything to say about that? Get out of here. It's just such a cheap ending. I understand that they want to definitively end the New 52 universe, but if they wanted to do that in this way, I have to ask the obvious question. Why wasn't Barry a main character? If they wanted the final choice to be his in making another Flashpoint, then the logical conclusion is that he has to go through a journey to come to that decision. I actually think it would have made the movie better to replace Supes with Barry. It would give a justification for why he hasn't been caught yet by the patrolling parademons on Earth, since he can run away from them, and it would have allowed them to give him a proper arc to justify the end Flashpoint decision. I don't think I would have liked the Flashpoint decision any more than I do now, but it at least would have provided some amount of narrative payoff. I just fundamentally disagree that this should have been the ending. I would have preferred if they altered reality instead of completely resetting it, similar to what I think they did in the comics version of the New 52 universe, at least as far as I understand it. Giving up shouldn't be the ending of a superhero story. It doesn't fit with the tone that they set for themselves, and especially if it's done this poorly, it completely ruins any amount of pathos that's found in the rest of the story. Raven finally coming to terms with Trigon being her father and learning to use his destructive tendencies to the hero's advantage, Constantine fully forming into a hero, Superman getting his rage moment against Darkseid, the remaining Leaguers banding together to win the war, all of this is rendered meaningless by the ending. Nothing mattered because it was all leading to this. The world sucks, so let's restart it. It would be one thing if the journey was worth our time, but as we've seen in this catalog, most of the New 52 movies have been below average, especially compared to the catalog's earlier outings and even some standalones like Gods and Monsters within the New 52 era. And really quick, the obvious comparison is obvious. This is trying to be Avengers. I don't think there's any debate about that. It's just trying to do it all in one movie that's half the length of even one of Avengers Infinity War or Avengers Endgame. I don't want to compare them. It would not be fair. So we're just going to leave it at that and we're going to move on, okay? I think it's clear that the writers, animators, and directors were bored and were tired of working on this universe. Even without being as detailed or full as its comics counterparts, it was already becoming bloated, and it struggled to balance the characters even just in war when the count was at its smallest. There is no character payoff found here because the characters' arcs were never leading to this film. Neither was any of the world building. Cyborg's sacrifice at the end feels hollow because his arc simply stopped after Throne of Atlantis. Superman had a really great movie about his flaws and his strengths as a hero, and none of the lessons learned were used here. Trigon randomly starts acting up inside of Raven's crystal for some reason that's never explained. Damian completely reverts back to where he would have ended up had he never met Batman, a cold and ruthless leader of the League of Assassins. All of the care and effort put into this universe is either unutilized, forgotten, or betrayed, and that's a real shame, even speaking as someone who pretty regularly disliked a lot of the developments for the characters. I think it's also very telling that despite this being the supposed culmination of the entire New 52 universe, there's no great piece of animation or direction found in this movie. It remains average or below average for its entire runtime. Why is it that Justice League Dark has better action than this movie? Why is it that Justice League War has better direction and lighting? Why is it that the death Death of Superman remains the best looking for this universe. Why isn't all of that praise reserved for this film? The only conclusion that I can come to is that they simply didn't care, or at least were so eager to finish, or maybe they had so little time that they couldn't or wouldn't put in the effort to make any of this count. Believe it or not, I was ready to like this movie. The opening was surprisingly good, aside from the out-of-character moment for Superman, and the cut to 2 years later was, I thought, pretty artfully done. However, a ton of missteps later, the pointless inclusion of the Suicide Squad, a lack of logical character arcs, and a cop-out ending leave this film rotting in the dirt, trampled by its own ambition. As for the catalog itself, it's ongoing. But as for the chunk I've watched, the New 52 was on average the worst category of this catalog. I crunched the numbers, and here are my rankings. The average score for films before the New 52 era was 4.875 out of 10, which is below average, but it was also brought down by a shaky beginning and 2 1 out of 10s. It also has 2 of the 3 8s, and the only 10 out of 10, so there's also that to consider. For movies after the New 52 began, the average comes out to 4.41 out of 10, while the average for just the New 52 movies is 4.4 out of 10. Well, it doesn't seem like that big of a drop. Let's look at it this way. Out of 16 films before the New 52 era, there were 6 that were above average. Out of 16 comprising the New 52 films, only 3 achieved that. 2 if you don't count Flashpoint Paradox, which some don't because of the continuity errors. By contrast, leaving out the 1 out of 10s, only 3 films pre-New 52 were scored a 2 or a 3, whereas 7 were scored that of the New 52 movies. So while the averages appear similar, with the pre-New 52 movies still beating them out by about half a point, the baseline quality of the New 52 movies was very low compared to the admittedly varying scores of the pre-New 52 films. So which would you prefer? A wild variance of quality where some are some of the best animated content you've seen and some are the worst animated content you've seen? Or would you rather be stuck in a middling hell of mediocrity, where the best they achieve is only good and not great, like the other category? Is it safer? Most definitely. I can't say that I got extremely pissed off at any New 52 movie save for Hell to Pay, but I also felt so much less passionately about any of them. Even writing this script weeks after I've seen some of these movies, I'm struggling to remember what exactly happens in them. Overall, the only conclusion I can come to is that the New 52 was a mistake. It shouldn't have happened. It produced below average films where I learned next to nothing about any of the characters about 80% of the time, and the plots are just generic superhero capers with no interesting flourishes. The most interesting story development came in this last entry with the heroes losing at the beginning, and even that was rewritten by the ending. The ending itself invalidates any development that any of the heroes have gone through, since their journeys to get there were largely boring, meandering, or straight up backwards. To put things into perspective, I would rather watch any pre-New 52 era film than the vast majority of New 52 films, including both Green Lantern First Flight and Superman vs. the Elite. I loved making those videos. I loved hating those movies. It was raw, it was passionate, and it was some of the best time I've had with this series. Maybe even more so than The Dark Knight Returns and other high-quality products. And for those curious, the average for every film score is 4.61 out of 10, a failing grade. And with that, we're done. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the content, and if you liked this video's longer style, I would recommend my videos on the Kingdom Hearts series, where I go into far too much detail about every aspect of every game. With this series done, I can finally go about finishing that one, so, weight off my mind. I'm also working on 2 larger videos as well. One is a critique and analysis of Young Justice's first 3 seasons, which will hopefully come out before the 4th season premieres. And as a change of pace, and because I find it interesting, I'm also making a big comparison video between High School Musical, Glee, and Pitch Perfect, so stay tuned if you think that might be interesting. After this, I'm going to be making a ranking video for those that just want general recommendations for this catalog, so look forward to that as well, especially for the movies I personally ranked but didn't put a score at the end of the video. Again, thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. It would really help me out. Until the end, my friends.